My name is Gibson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and today this is a video for the anxious attachment styles and fearful avoidant attachment styles, and this has to do with fearless self-expression and not feeling taken advantage of. So something I see all the time with these two attachment styles is there's usually this feeling of, I get taken advantage of, people take more than they give. I always end up being with people who are sort of taking everything from me, and I'm not sure why I end up in this situation. And I really want to go into the deeper dynamics of this to explain and express and explore this with everybody. So, first, you have to know that every single decision we make is actually made for self-preservation. So at its deepest levels, we make decisions because we perceive more benefits than drawbacks from our conscious and subconscious mind's views combined. Okay, so you can think of it this way, like you have a deep subconscious positive intention for every single decision that you're making. It's meeting some kind of need for you. So at the end of the day, when you're, with people, friendships, family relationships, dating relationships, where you catch yourself always giving more than you're receiving, you want to first recognize that this is something within you, okay? Because oftentimes we feel like, oh, everybody takes advantage of us, and like I've been there and I've done work on this, so I understand this. And your external world literally shows you that, right? But at the end of the day, you have a huge part in that. And that part is usually that you feel safer giving more than you receive because you're afraid that your core wounds will be activated or triggered if you don't, okay? So usually these core wounds that I see for these attachment styles are, a fear of rejection, a fear of not feeling good enough, a fear of being abandoned emotionally. A fear of feeling guilty is a huge one for the fearful avoidance, less so than the anxious attachment styles, but it can apply to both. Or a fear of being attacked or threatened if you're not giving, more than you receive. So oftentimes these two attachment styles overextend themselves as a means to avoid potential pain that they have stored in their subconscious mind and nervous system according to past experiences that they had. Okay, so oftentimes, let's use some like really clear examples here. So let's say you're a fearful avoidant or anxious attachment style, and you, when you were a child, maybe every time you received something from mom or dad, they then guilted you for it and said, oh, I do so much for you, and you never even do your chores. And let's say like they would always guilt you when they would do things for you. What happens is your brain actually stores receiving with guilt, and it doesn't feel good. Or let's use another example. Let's say that, you felt not good enough perpetually as a child, maybe because of, your peer group, maybe because of your parents always, telling you weren't good enough, not doing enough. There could be a number of different reasons, but let's say that's a stored wound for you. You'll be afraid of not overextending yourself in relationships because you're trying to overcompensate for your deep feelings of unworthiness. And so God forbid you make a mistake in a relationship and don't give enough or show up well enough. Somebody could criticize you, or somebody could, be upset with you or disappointed in you. And it's going to trigger all those stored feelings living inside of you. And you're so afraid of doing that you're naturally going to overextend yourself without even making a conscious decision around it. And then you're going to be like, why do I struggle to set boundaries? Or why do I struggle to, express myself? So you want to dig into the roots of this. This is how we really create change, okay? And this is how fearless self-expression can happen. But without doing this deeper sort of work and having these realizations, we get stuck in these ongoing habits of doing things that are not serving the highest expression of ourselves or our potential. And we want to take a really close look, okay? So number one, you want to ask yourself, why personally do I struggle with setting boundaries or expressing myself completely? And whether we're talking about like self-expression or boundaries are essentially like your personal territory that are a reflection of your feelings and needs. Okay, and so you have to be able to fearlessly self-express and say, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Or, hey, I would really like to do this more in the relationship. And either way, the expression of something you don't want to do or you do want to do. They're both sort of like a set of boundaries, okay? So let's say on like the fearless self-expression. So number one, you want to ask yourself, why for me personally do I struggle with this fearless self-expression, okay? What wounds am I afraid will be touched if I do say no to something, or if I do express myself and become really vulnerable about what my feelings and needs are? What for me specifically is it that I'm afraid of? Again, a lot of anxious attachment styles too have a deep-rooted fear of abandonment. Like, oh, if I tell my friend that, I don't like going to the movies and I actually want to go and do this activity instead, they might not want to be friends with me anymore. Right? So this can be applying to a whole different sort of set of circumstances. Maybe when you were a child, more so for the fearful of avoidance, you would set a boundary or try to express your feelings and needs, and you would be attacked or punished, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going there. So what is it for you specifically? What needs are you trying to meet by not fearlessly expressing yourself? This is a really important question. Sometimes we want approval. Sometimes we want, there's so many different sort of pieces in here. Sometimes we want connection. Sometimes we want, and so look at what needs you're trying to meet by avoiding setting the boundary. And then you want to look at what has not setting a boundary or fearlessly expressing myself in my relationships cost me. Because your subconscious mind is sort of the one running the show here. If you're watching this video and not being able to express yourself and your feelings and needs is causing you some kind of pain. So this is because your subconscious has stored so much negative with doing that. There's so many negative emotional associations stored and picked up over time. And because your subconscious mind literally stores and basically hoards everything, like all of your memories and all the emotions attached to them, when we have these repetitive negative experiences, your brain goes, okay, fearlessly self-expressing or setting boundaries, not good, not safe, not happy, and so we won't do it. And then your conscious mind is like, hey, I need to talk to my partner more about what's going on here, or I need to express myself, I'm not being heard, or I need to start telling my friends what I really want to do, or my family what's appropriate and not appropriate for me any longer. And yet I try to go there, and I don't. I avoid, or I self-sabotage. Why? Because your subconscious mind is still trying to protect you based on all those previously stored negative associations you picked up through the earlier course of your life. So we want to look at, instead of having this one-sided subconscious perception, you want to use your conscious mind and actually look at, what does this cost me? Because what you're doing is you're actually building negative associations now by looking at the cost to not expressing yourself. And what you're doing is you're balancing out some of the emotional storage in there. You're equilibrating. And now you actually have more conscious control over how you want to choose to show up. And this is really effective. So look at what this has cost you and take some time. Like, there's 7 areas of life. You can use it this way. Career, financial, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and relational. So like, family, friendships, romantic relationships. And go through those 7 areas and look for, what is the cost of not setting boundaries in each of these areas? What has this cost me? Could I have, had richer relationships? Could I have been further in my career? Could I have saved money better instead of spending it on everybody else? Could I have, so go through, because these are the patterns that I see, like, almost all fearful avoidance and anxious attachment styles running into, at least from time to time. So then look for the positives. Now we want to build positive associations, positive emotional storage. This is really a big part of reprogramming your subconscious. Positive emotional storage to setting those boundaries, to fearlessly expressing yourself. So look at how would life be better in those 7 areas if I started expressing my feelings and needs fearlessly, if I started speaking up fearlessly, okay? And now I'm going to give you some tools how to do it, because sometimes people will be like, I don't know what that looks like to speak up fearlessly. Like, I don't know even how to start. So I'll give you some tools for a second how to do that. And really take inventory with your relationship. Sometimes we think that we are serving ourselves in our relationship by not speaking up, like kind of sweeping things under the rug. But unfortunately, emotions will always spill over in some kind of other way. things always come out in a different way eventually. So, one example of this that I see all the time is, let's say, you're the one always doing the dishes, always cleaning the house, always doing everything. And you're also working full time and you're also just as busy as your partner. But you always sort of take that housework on and that role. And then you're like, oh, they never do anything. And you decide not to speak up. You decide, oh, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. If you don't feel good about it, if you don't love housework and it does impact you emotionally even a little bit, it's going to come back out at some point. So you want to take a look at it this way. If you don't feel good about it and you repress it, you don't speak up about it, then you're just creating the breeding grounds for resentment. And that resentment might express itself as spitefulness. You might get mad about something that you're not actually upset about with your partner, which I see often. You might make passive-aggressive comments about it instead. And none of these things are effective ways of communicating in a relationship. They do damage. So we need to get that peace back where we feel okay and we're comfortable expressing what we're going through, what we're feeling, what we're needing. Fearless self-expression is key, okay? So now go through. So how do we do this, okay? Go through those 7 areas of life again. Take your time. You can pause this video if you need to. So career, financial, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, okay? And look at where you're not setting boundaries currently, okay? And look at what those boundaries would be for you. So what are my needs here? How could I express myself in each of these areas more specifically? Okay, so for example, one thing might be, back to that example of the housework. You might be looking at the situation with your partner and be like, okay, in this space, I come home from work, I do all the chores around the house, the cooking, the cleaning, and, then I get into bed, and by the time I'm ready for bed, it's like, or by the time I'm done all the housework, it's time to go to bed, and then I get up and go back to working, and I don't get any time for myself. I don't get to really connect with my partner romantically. I don't get to, so you're looking at the cost, and then you want to look at how would I express this in a specific way that serves me. And so, it might be, hey, I really need you to take a turn sometimes. Do you think we could do housework together? Or, hey, I noticed that I'm doing a lot more of the housework and I'm feeling a little bit exhausted and I could really use some help during the week. And I think that would make me more emotionally available to you in other ways because I wouldn't be so drowned with all of this responsibility all the time. So you want to just express honestly and kindly. Those are like the key rules, right? So sort of going back here for a moment, go through those 7 areas. Look for where you are not getting feelings heard or needs met and how you would want to be heard. What do you want your partner to know is really the question you can ask yourself. Or what do you want your family member to know or your friend to know? Okay? So again, go through the 7 areas and ask that question. What do I want this person to know where I'm having feelings unheard or needs unmet? And then there's 3 key tips you can use for how to communicate super effectively, okay? Tip number 1, you can ask for an exchange of energy. So you can link something where you say, look, I'm doing this here, and if you're willing to compromise or help me out, I'm willing to help you out in some other area if you have a request. So you can ask for, hey, I need a little bit more help here, and maybe your partner always wants you to go golfing with them or something. Okay, I need some help around the house, and if you can do that, I'd be open to going golfing once a month on a Sunday or whatever it is. So you can ask for that exchange of energy. Some people will be like, oh, that sounds so mechanical. It's fantastic. People make decisions at the end of the day based on self-preservation of their needs at a subconscious level. All decisions are made from that space. So when you are sort of looking at somebody else's needs and asking for your needs to be met, you're just being transparent. We're doing this like whether we know it consciously or not. You're just bringing this information to the conscious level, and you're having these more transparent conversations. Super healthy, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, we can use something called the sandwich approach, which is like if I ask for something and I really want to come across in a kind and non-accusatory way, I start off by saying something I'm grateful for to the person, or paying them a compliment or something that's kind, and it has to be genuine. It can't be like, oh, hey, you look great today. Like, take a second, think about something you appreciate about your partner or your friendship or your family relationship, and start with something positive. Then say very clearly and explicitly what your need is. And then you can end with something positive again. Okay, and it's just a nice way, especially if your partner's more dismissive, avoidant, and can be sensitive to criticism. It's just a nice way of like mitigating that in advance and also still being heard. Because usually when people get a compliment or when they get, you know, a moment of gratitude paid towards them, they become really present because they sort of get into that reflective state. They hear you, they see you, they feel connected to you because they feel like they're being seen and heard and appreciated. And so now you have a really good chance of getting your information or your message across and that person being more open-minded towards it. The next thing, you want to practice receiving without guilt or fear. Usually what I see is that the anxious attachment style receives with fear, like, oh gosh, you know, we're not giving equally now, and I always need to be the one giving more because, you know, what if they leave me? What if they abandon me? What if I'm not good enough? So I better, like, you know, get back and be on the giving end even more than them. So usually there's fear more so for the anxious attachment style, and the fearful avoidant usually got guilted more or shamed more for even like having needs growing up and stuff like that. So it can go both ways, but that's just generally the pattern I see more. So see what yours is. You know, how am I receiving? And is it, what am I afraid of here? Or what am I feeling guilty about? And so you want to practice, and you can start really small, just receiving. And when you receive something, like somebody, you know, gives you your paycheck at work, or somebody, just take a second and be like, I do deserve this. And why do I deserve this? Because I'm showing up here, 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 and here. Like, actually take a moment to notice why you are worthy of receiving. And I don't mean like just say, hey, I'm worthy of receiving. Notice why you're receiving something. What have I done that's made this worthy? Who am I that is worthy of this? Am I doing good work at work? Am I, you know, receiving something from my partner as a gift because I've been really giving and considerate and thoughtful and kind. And, you know, I have to be open to this exchange. Healthy relationships have as close to an equal exchange of energy as possible. Sometimes we'll be more polarized. Sometimes one person's going through a harder time, but, you know, we want to keep that exchange of energy alive and balanced, because it's really the perception of imbalance in terms of the exchange of energy, in terms of time, space, energy, or matter, that creates conflict in the first place. Okay, so we want to mitigate that conflict in advance by being open to receiving, and that might be something that we have to work on if we are anxious attachment or fearful avoidant attachment style. Okay. The next thing is write 50 reasons why boundaries and fearless self-expression are good and healthy. Your brain has learned over time that this is bad and unhealthy and threatening and not good because you had negative associations when you originally tried to receive, or when you originally tried to speak up or express your feelings and needs. So take a moment, and this is because the subconscious is programmed through repetition plus emotion. This is sort of another tool for reprogramming. I'll do a whole bunch of deeper stuff on reprogramming in other videos, but you want to go through and put all the reasons why, you know, with emotion and with repetition, fearless self-expression is good, not bad, because your nervous system and subconscious still think that it's not very good. So you want to just equilibrate that by balancing that out using the same principles that programmed you in the first place. The subconscious mind is programmed through repetition plus emotion. Use those same tools in a way that benefits you. So now you're using your conscious mind, your own conscious mind, to reprogram the negative subconscious patterns and programs that you didn't ask for, you didn't want, and that are sort of becoming a detriment to your relationships. And so you get the opportunity to work through this now on your own time. Okay, so just to do a little review here really quickly, the anxious attachment style and fearful avoidant attachment styles tend to really struggle with fearless self-expression, and they often feel things like, oh, I'm being taken advantage of. You are feeling taken advantage of as a general rule because you take advantage of yourself to meet the needs of others in order to avoid deep-rooted subconscious programs and fears of being abandoned, guilted, shamed, not good enough, attacked, punished, that kind of stuff, okay? Because that's how your subconscious from earlier experiences has stored you know, not having the upper hand as the, you know, bigger giver in the relationship, or not, you know, every time you said no to something or set a boundary or expressed yourself, you might have been met with one of those things. So an aspect of yourself at a deeper level thinks that this stuff is unsafe or dangerous or not okay, or will get you, you know, get your wounds activated and triggered, okay? So at a deep level, really what that means is that you have deep subconscious needs that you meet by taking advantage of yourself for others, okay? Like, oh, I can get that emotional connection. I won't be abandoned. I can feel safe in a relationship, etc. Look for what yours are specifically. Then look for, okay, now that I know that my subconscious has been working in this direction, trying to do this stuff, you know, for me, what does it actually cost me? Let me take a really clear look here. What does it actually cost me to always give? What could I have done with that money instead, that time instead? You know, how could I feel replenished mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, by giving some of my own energy to myself instead of always just giving all of it to everybody else? So take a clear look and go through those 7 areas of life and take a really clear look, like assess, right? Reflect. And then look at how would my life be better if I did set these boundaries, if I did fearlessly express myself, if I did show up for myself and my needs and cater to myself at least equally to how I cater to others. I think we want to sort of be on that equal playing field all the time, or as much as possible, or we're not really putting ourselves above others. But again, these attachment styles naturally put yourself so underneath others. You want to just close that gap a little bit. You know, make yourself important too. Okay, your own needs, your own feelings, because if you don't, it hurts your relationships more than anything, because you feel resentful, you feel frustrated, repressed, you feel like your needs aren't being met, so you meet your needs outside of the relationship. Like, there's a lot of negatives that come out of not treating yourself equally that hurt other people even more anyway. So it's important to be clear about. And then go through, okay, where are all the areas in my life I'm not setting boundaries? How can I, you know, create a strategy and then use one of those 3 approaches or 4 approaches, you know, the exchange of energy method of expression, the sandwich approach, you know, the practicing receiving, and then you can do some reprogramming work about writing 50 reasons why it's actually good to set boundaries, okay? Now, that's a lot of work. It's super important work for the health of your relationships, for the health of yourself, your body, your career, your money, your finances. Like, important work to be doing. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm getting so much joy out of making these videos because I just love teaching and creating content and material. So thank you for watching. And please feel free to visit www.personaldevelopmentschool.com if you have any other questions or, yeah, any of that stuff. Thank you.